Hi guys, Jamie here from JB Motion. In today's video, we're going to be making this. So we have a creepy character. He's basically just the figure object from Cinema 4D, which I'm sure all of you have used and seen before. And he has a zombie looking head about him. So we're going to be covering a lot in this tutorial. Starting off in Premiere Pro, going to be cutting up our clips. All of the video footage, by the way, you guys can download from the description below. So we're cutting up our clips in Premiere, bring it into After Effects to track our camera. We're going to bring all that information into Cinema 4D, where we're going to be rigging up our character and applying our animation to him. Now, I did use the Rokoko suit to capture the motion capture data. You guys are going to be able to download everything you need to follow along with this tutorial in the description below. Once we have all the animation set up and our character rigged, we're going to be bringing him into our scene, adding some materials and some lights to get him looking nice and cool. And then we're going to be bringing it all into After Effects once it's rendered out and applying the finishing touches. So let's get started on this. Here we go. Okay guys, so I'm going to be starting this off in Premiere Pro. It's part of my workflow, so I basically bring in all of my footage. So you can see all my footage is in here. I just recorded a bunch of footage in my living room, and then I kind of like picked, you know, the best parts that what I thought was which shots looked the best to me, I suppose, and then I just kind of dragged them over into this sequence. So I have exported this sequence. You can see it's made up of a bunch of clips. So I've exported this as a single video. So yeah, so you guys can download this. This is just all shots in one sequence. You can download this from the description below. But what you will have to do, if I just bring this in and if I just turn off the visibility of everything else, is you're going to have to find the cuts. So this is one shot and then it cuts to the next. You're going to have to find those cuts and you're going to have to cut them because, you know, it's one single shot. So you're going to have to cut them at each of the cuts. So like, obviously I know where the cuts are because I have them all down here. You guys aren't going to see this. You're just going to see this all shots clip. But just find where, just like there, where the camera changes, and then you're gonna, you know, use your razor tool or your cut tool there to make those cuts. And then the end is just kind of black. So once it turns black, you can get rid of that at the end as well. And what I'm also providing you guys with is the background music as well. So you'll be able to download that from the description below. You have it here. So it's called A Suspense. Just drag that in. I already have mine dragged in. And that will be good to go. So I'm just going to delete all of this that I just did. You guys are going to keep all that because, you know, you just cut all your clip. You just cut that all shots into each of the separate shots there. So I'll turn this back on. So we're going to focus on this clip here. So what we want to do is grab our clip. Let's do a Control S as well. Make sure you Control S a lot. You guys might want to be doing a save as and save that out to a folder. So I'm going to do Control S because I already have this set up. And I'm going to right click on this and go to replace with After Effects composition. So that is going to open this clip up in an After Effects comp, and then we're going to be able to access all of our After Effects magic, I suppose. Now, I do have to pick a place to save this as well. So I'm going to save this in a folder called After Effects, and we'll call this shot 2 because, you know, it's shot number 2. We'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is shot 2. We'll call this shot 2 and save that. So now you can see our composition has been brought in. So that's looking pretty good. So before we track the camera, we're going to have to right click here on our little video and go to pre-compose, and we want to move all attributes into the new composition. We have to do that before we track the camera, as we brought in the composition from Premiere. Don't ask me why. I think it's because sometimes there might be lumetri effects applied in Premiere that are brought over, so it just has to be done. So we're going to do that, and then we can go to effect or animation and track camera. Now, while that's tracking, we are going to talk about I suppose the differences that I'm going to cover between tracking in After Effects and tracking in Cinema 4D. So After Effects is really easy, and I really like to use it. See how quick that is. It's already done. I just clicked one button and that's already finished. At Cinema 4D, you get a lot more control because you can like mask out areas that you don't want to track, and you can, manually add in what track points you want and etc. and all that for complicated scenes that you need to track. Now, the thing with, and that takes a bit longer, but the thing with After Effects is I have found, you guys might not have noticed it, but I have found, and I'm going to show you, when I export this now to Cinema 4D and I look at my dope sheet, there's going to be some weirdness going on with the keyframes of my tracked camera. And I don't know why. And it's not a problem unless motion blur is turned on. But I tend to have motion blur turned on. So I'll show you in more detail what I actually mean once we get this into Cinema 4D. Just a little side note there while that was tracking. And also I do, for the next clip, so this clip I'm going to be using the After Effects tracker just to show you what I mean with regards to that issue I found. But for the next maybe couple of clips, I'll use the native Cinema 4D one, and then I might just finish off with the After Effects one. But we'll see that as we go. Okay, so this has tracked. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of these track points that are on the actual plastic part of the window. I want it to be flat though, so maybe if I grab the green ones. Let's see. Okay, so it's not gonna be flat. Maybe I need to grab them across a bunch of different ones. I'm just going for the green ones. So now that's flat up against the window. So I can right click and go create solid and camera. So now we have our track solid. Hit S on your keyboard, select the layer and just scale that down. Hit S on your keyboard to grab your scale. Just kind of rotate that so you're kind of lining up a bit more with what the window looks like. So that is fine. So what we can do now is we can do a Control S to save, and we can go File, Export, and let's export this using the Maxon Cinema 4D exporter. Usually takes a while to load. Click OK on that, and then we can create a new folder, c4d, and we can go tracked shots, and this is creep composition linked comp 1, so we can save that. I might just call this 2 because just to keep everything kind of easy to follow, I'm going to call this 1. This is going to be number 2, so I'm going to keep that going. Let's click save on that, and now if we open up Cinema, while Cinema is loading, what we can do is we can turn this off. And what we want is to get this out as an image sequence, because we're going to need this as an image sequence for when we're working in Cinema. We want to have it as a background in our Redshift camera. Let's go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. And let's pick a place, or pick the format PNG sequence and a place for this. We'll create another folder called Sequences. And these will be our movie sequences. And again, I'm going to keep everything so that like we're working on number 2, just so I don't get confused. We're working on shot 2. So let's save that and we can render this out. So that's going to render that out as an image sequence. And while it is, we can now jump into Cinema and we can open up our Cinema 4D file that we just exported from After Effects. So there we have the track solid that we have on our window. And we also have our camera. So now I want to show you what I mean by by After Effects messing up the tracked camera when you import it into Cinema 4D. I'll just show you what I mean by that. So if you look at your 3D tracker camera here, and if we open up our dope sheet, so everything looks fine until you go into the curves. So just click on the 3D camera tracker here, make sure all the keyframes are selected, hit tab on your keyboard. And then if we look at this, just it's a big mess. It shouldn't look like this. This is basically the camera, so I think that's those blue lines are like rotational lines. Yeah, so rotation Z. So the camera's like just doing like a ridiculous twist, we'll say. And you're not going to notice it. Like, you're not going to notice it if you go to that frame. It doesn't look like anything's happening. But if you render this out, say if we grab a cube, or even if we grab a guy, and let's just scale him up. So if we go into our camera view, and if we render this out on that frame that's all messy, let's just go to our render settings, select Redshift, go to Redshift, turn on motion blur, because remember, this only matters if we're using motion blur. And if we just output the current frame, we don't want to save it. If we just render that out, so okay, that's not a messy frame. Let's actually go to like this one. That's definitely messy. Let's render this out. So you can see now what we're dealing with. So we're rendering out on this messy frame, and there's a bunch of them. And because the camera's like suddenly jolting, it's giving us some crazy results with motion blur. Now, again, that being said, we don't need to care about that if motion blur is turned off. It makes no difference to us. And what I have been doing is I've been just using After Effects Motion Tracker, bringing my Cinema 4D render into After Effects. And let me get this set up a bit better here. I have been bringing my Cinema 4D render into After Effects, and I've been using my Real Smart Motion Blur plugin, which basically allows me to apply motion blur in post. It's a great plugin. It works really well. Looks great. But a lot of you guys, as I said, probably don't have that plugin, don't want it. So we're just going to be using Cinema 4D's native motion tracker after this shot. I just wanted to show you guys this. Some of you guys might not even be having this issue with After Effects. Maybe it's just me. But it's unlikely it's just me, because I've gone through multiple versions of After Effects and this problem still exists. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to point that out. So let's continue on with this tutorial. Okay, so what we can do now is we can just, I suppose, put our settings back to the way they were. Output all frames, we'll be doing that eventually, and that's fine. So now we can delete this guy. We don't need him anymore. We have our camera and everything. So we want to create a Redshift camera for this so that we're not using our After Effects tracker camera. So we're going to go and grab a Redshift camera and make it a child of the tracker camera. Make sure you're on frame 0 before you do that, so that it's all going to align up. And now if we switch between these two cameras, we're going to get the exact same results. I'm going to turn off the work plane so that we don't have that line wiggling around the place. And now we can go and add our background, the After Effects sequence that we rendered out as an image sequence. We can add that as the background of our Redshift camera. So if we go to the background, click on override, let's grab our movie sequence that we exported out. Here it is. Just click on any of those frames and say no. So we want this to animate. So go to this little drop down, click on the animation tab, set it to simple, and the frame rate 25 frames per second. All of our clips and everything we do for this whole project is 25 frames per second. Click on detect frames, and now we have our animated movie sequence. Okay guys, so we have our camera tracked and we have everything ready now to start getting in our zombie character. But currently we don't actually have a zombie character. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into Rokoko Studio and get my motion capture captured. So while that's loading up, I'm going to step away from my PC and get suited up. This is a shout out to Rokoko, who were kind enough to send me out their Smart Suit Pro 2 along with the smart gloves and the Rokoko head cam. If you guys are interested in any Rokoko products, head over to rokoko.com now and you'll get 5% off any order. Just use the discount code RKK_JBMotion, and I'm going to put that in the description below as well. Now, of course, a lot of you watching are not going to have access to Rokoko equipment. So what I am going to be doing is everything that I create, all the motion capture data that I capture, you guys are going to be able to download that from the description below so that you can continue on with this tutorial. So from here, I'm just going to go to projects and I'm going to go to new project, and I'm going to call this just test 1. And I'm sure you guys can come up with a better, I could have come up with a better name than that. New scene. Test 2. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So now I need to add an actor. I've already set up my actor from the setup when I first installed Rokoko Studio. So I can grab my guy. I just needed to input his height. And now what I need to do is go ahead and set up my capture devices. So capture device added, I can click on record, and basically it's just a case of pretending to be a zombie. So you can see that I only used the suit for this because our zombie character does not have any fingers, so I didn't need to use the gloves for this particular tutorial. And our zombie guy also doesn't have a face, so I wasn't using the head cam either. So I just basically put myself in the shoes of a zombie and tried to reenact or impersonate zombie movements. And I did this for quite a bit of time just so I had a lot of motion capture data that I could just select my favorite parts to use in this project. So now that that's done, I suppose we can jump into setting up our character animation. So what we can do is go to File, New, and we are going to be using this figure. So we want to get him rigged so that we can then apply the Rokoko motion capture data to him. So to rig him, we're going to go File, Export, and we're going to export him as an FBX. You can click OK on that. And let's find a place for him. So this is our creepy guy. We'll just call him. And we can save him out. So now if we jump into Mixamo, you can see I've already uploaded him, but I'm going to do it again. Just so you guys can follow along. So let's find the FBX, and here he is. Let's drag him in. Okay. So for best results, have your character in T-pose, and he is, so that's fine. Now we need to set all this up. So we're going to put this directly on the chin, the wrists on the wrists, the elbows on the elbows, the knees, you guessed it, on the knees, and the groin on the groin. Okay, so this guy has no fingers, so we're going to go no fingers for him. Click on next, and that auto rigger is going to do its business. So we'll pause the video and pop back in once that's done. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So if you're seeing any weirdness on his head, like bending in a weird way, just make sure that you're putting all of those markers, like the chin, make sure it's directly on the chin, because you can get some weird deforming of the geometry. So straight away I can see some problem, right? So his shoulders are just too low and it just doesn't look good. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to say, well, we're not happy with that. We're going to have to go back to our Cinema 4D file. Let's make this guy editable. Hit C on your keyboard. And let's just click on this, go to View and Unfold Selected. Now we're going to have to find this fella, which is the left joint. And we're going to have to grab, so everything that is attached to this, which I think is all of this. And we're going to have to grab everything that's attached to this arm as well, which is probably all of this. So we need to hold down Shift so we can get both of those. And let's just bring those up so that, you know, I'm trying to get it close to what I had here, right? So we want to bring those up. The shoulders were too low. So now that that's fixed, we can go ahead and go File, Export again, Export to FBX. Let's just overwrite this one. And that's cool. So we're going to do that whole process again. Let's upload him. Where is he? There he is. And next on that, the chin is there. And no fingers. So let's go next on that. Okay, so that's better. His shoulders are kind of where you'd expect shoulders to be. They're much higher up as opposed to being like really down low. So I'm happy with that, so we can go next. That's fine. So now we have this guy, he's rigged and he's in a T-pose, so we can download that. We're just downloading T-pose. And we can save this. Let's go and grab this out. We'll just copy this into our folder, into our FBX folder, paste them in there. And we can replace the file in the destination. Okay, so now we have him rigged in a T-pose. So if we go now, let's just go File, New, and we go to File, Merge. We can grab the download, creepyguy.fbx. Click OK. Say no. And let's delete this camera. So you can see that we have now a fully rigged figure. We're going to call this guy, let's group him, and we'll call him Creepy Guy, for lack of a better name. So Creepy Guy is now fully rigged. He's got his skeleton. So now we're going to bring in the Rokoko capture that we've captured. So let's do that. We go to File, Merge, Rokoko Captures. So we have the clip 2. And we can say OK. So I'm going to switch to my standard layout here. I just set up this layout again, just more space on the right. And let's zoom out on our dope sheet. This is the button to open up your dope sheet. I'm sure you guys know. Let's zoom out, see how many frames we have. We have about 2,500 frames, minus a few. Okay. One more. Now, so we have all of our frames from our Rokoko motion capture. This is our skeleton for that. So we want to get this animation onto our guy, onto our creepy guy. So a couple of things we need to do before we even start that process is we need to match the rotation of the arms to match up with the Rokoko hand. So his hands, our creepy guy's hands are like this, but we need them to match up with the Rokoko, so we need to rotate them that way. We just need to rotate both of his arms forwards to match them up. So we'll do that now. Let's grab the Mixamo hips. Oh, as well, we have keyframes on this Mixamo. Like when you download Mixamo stuff, it often just comes with keyframes. So if we make any changes to his arm rotation, it's just going to snap back the minute we hit play. So we need to middle mouse click on this. That'll select the parent and all the children, all of these guys. And then we can go to coordinates, select all these. I'm just holding down shift, right click, animation, and delete track. That didn't work for these ones. Right click, animation, delete track. Okay, it's not working for me. Let's try again, delete track. And that took a lot longer than it should have. Delete track. Okay, so now all of our keyframes are deleted, we hope. So let's click on this, go to view, unfold, selected. Let's find the Mixamo left arm. And we are going to rotate this just like we showed, just like I said, kind of forwards. So imagine, so this guy doesn't have thumbs, so it's kind of hard to imagine, but imagine his thumb is here. So we want to rotate this forwards. Hold down shift, so that'll snap to 90 degrees. And then we're going to press play just to make sure that we did in fact delete all the keyframes. If we didn't, that would have snapped back. Then we can grab the Mixamo right arm. And we're going to, again, hold down shift, rotate it along that green axis to 90 degrees, like that. Cool. So with that done, we can now go ahead with the process of transferring the data from the Rokoko capture to our creepy guy. So we're going to right click on our Rokoko hips. And we're going to go to rigging tags and we're going to add a character definition tag. Where are you? And we're going to do the same for our Mixamo, or for our creepy guy hips. Right click, rigging tags, character definition. Now in the character definition tag here, we're going to open up the manager. We're going to extract the skeleton. It's going to show us the number of joints we have and all of the joints that we have set up for this creepy guy. And then we're going to set reference pose. So that's setting the reference pose that we've just set up. And we can close that now. we're going to go into the Rokoko motion capture hips character definition tag and do the same. Open up the manager, extract skeleton, shows us that we have more joints than we do for our creepy guy, doesn't matter. And then we're going to set the reference pose on that. Now we go back to our creepy guy character definition tag, and we're going to create a solver. And then we're going to drag this character definition tag into the source character. If we hit play now, you can see that we've transferred the animation. Now, some of you might be having trouble with dragging the character definition tag from here into the source character in our solver to here. It might be grayed out. If that is the case, just go to your takes, make sure the main take is selected. Sometimes when we import stuff from Mixamo, we'll get some extra takes. If the main one isn't selected, you won't be able to drag that into that. So just that caught me out there a while back. Cool. So we have our animation transferred over. We can hide off the Rokoko skeleton now. We don't need to see that. So right now the animation is being driven by the Rokoko animation, but we want it to be able to drive itself, to be standalone. So we need to bake the keyframes these keyframes into our dope sheet. So to do that, first of all, we're going to do a file, save as. Let's go to our FBX folder, Rokoko captures, and we can just call this clip to edited. Save that out. We can close this now. We don't need this anymore. So we want to bake this animation into our dope sheet. So let's grab our Mixamo hips and just click and drag this over to our dope sheet. And then we can grab these, go to functions and bake objects. We don't want to create a copy. We don't want to clean tracks. We just want to click OK there. And that's going to bake all of our keyframes into our dope sheet. So now if we get rid of our Rokoko stuff, we don't need that anymore. Let's delete that and hit play. You can see that the animation is still working. So that's great. Now, you are going to notice with any, I suppose, motion capture data, there's going to be some issues with regards to clipping, like, intersecting geometry. So let's just find, there we go. So you can see there, the geometry is intersecting and it doesn't look good. We need to fix that. But to fix that, we need to have like a control rig. So we're going to create one for our guy. And creating a control rig is made quite simple with the character object in Cinema 4D. So first of all, let's do a file save and we can start doing that now. So we're going to go up to character, grab a character object, and we are going to go to the object tab, and we're going to grab a Mixamo control rig. So we need to start setting this up, and it's really easy. We just create a root, then pelvis, then we hold down control so that we can create two arms. If you don't hold down control, you create one, and then you'd have to create another one. So just hold down control, and we create two arms. Let's go back to frame 0 on this actually. And then we go to our left arm, create a hand, right arm, create another hand. And then we go back to our pelvis and we hold down control to create two legs. So we want all of these joints to snap to our character. So to do that, we just go to adjust, and that will snap into position. And now we need to go to the animate tab, and we need to go to the weight transfer. So we basically are going to use this to, you guessed it, to transfer the weights. So we need to find all of our geometry for our creepy guy, which is all in here. So let's select the pelvis, go to view, and unfold selected. So now we can see all of our geometry. We have to go through the tedious task now of dragging all of our geometry into, if we select this master controller object, into this weight transfer geometries field. So I'm going to start doing that now. And sometimes you'll get lost with regards to which one you want. So what I like to do is I just grab the first one, click and drag it down. Before I release, I just check, okay, this one's highlighted, so the next one is the neck. Just maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's the way I do it. So we're going to grab the joint, then the neck. Where are you, neck? And then the head. Right joint is next. I can see that right joint 5 is the following. Right joint 4, then right hand is next. Right lower arm. Right upper arm. Left joint 6. Left joint 5. Left joint 4. Left hand, left lower arm, left upper arm, upper body, right joint 3, right joint 2, right joint, right foot, right shin, right thigh, left joint 3, left joint 2, left joint, we're almost there, left foot, left shin, left thigh, and finally pelvis. So now we can click on transfer weights, and we can watch this animation. Oops. Before we do that, we can actually just check that that is working. So you can see that we're able to use this control rig to control our rig. And then the last step is we need to go back to our master controller, go to the retarget master and click on retarget all. So now we will be able to watch our animation. Let's just grab this layout controller so that we can get his feet back to the floor. And now if we scrub along, you can see that we have all of our animation working, and we also have a control rig. So if we want to make a change, we can make him down like that, and the animation will play out in that way. Let's do another file save, or undo that last change. Now we're going to be able to clean up our geometry, or I should say clean up our animation so that we're not getting any of these intersecting limbs. Let's do a file save and we'll jump into that next. So let's get our character now into our creepy comp shot 02 in here. So we can grab this, hit Control A so that we're selecting everything, hit Alt G, and let's just call this creepy guy. And we can Control C and we can bring this in here to pop it in. So if we just open up our dope sheet, so I said we're going to be tidying up the animation, but remember we only have 200 frames and our motion capture is it's fairly long. It stretches on for 2,000 and something frames. So we don't need to tidy up everything. We just need to tidy up the part that we decide that we want in this shot. So let's just kind of get this guy scaled up. We can bring him down and we can scale him up. We go to our coordinates tab. Let's go for 5, 5, 5. Where did he go? We want to keep him in front of this track solid, which is the window. So let's see. Go bigger again, I'd say. We go 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. So I think that's big enough. And we can rotate him as well, 180 degrees. And again, let's just make sure that he's right up beside that window. Something like that. I think he could be a little bit bigger. We'll go 7. 7, 7, 7. And checking that he is close to the window again. Okay. Right, so he's gone beyond the window again. Let's pull him back. So let's just find the part of the animation that we want. So I'm going to grab the Mixamo rig hips in the dope sheet here and just kind of scrub along. Until he starts doing zombie stuff. So looks like he's doing some zombie stuff here. Meh, let's try and find something else. So I'm just clicking and dragging this along again. Yeah, I think I like that one. So I'm going to go with that, and he's jumped far away from the window again. Let's just bring him close to the window again. And now we can have a look at this. Cool. So I'm actually not seeing any intersections of the geometry. It could be because the camera is actually hiding his hands. Let's just have a look. If we go to our default camera. So it could be a case that we don't have any tidying up to do for this particular part of the... So there is an intersection. But the question is, are we seeing it? And if we're not, then we don't actually need to tidy up anything. So no, we're not really seeing it. It's being hidden. I suppose the camera's not showing it. So we actually, for this particular shot, we don't need to hide anything. So that's good to go. So let's do a file save. And let's get some lighting in our scene now. So let's grab a dome light. And we can go to our content browser here. Let's search for HDRI. And we can zoom in. The one that I want is this one. It's kind of like a living room, I suppose. So we'll go with this one. Go to your object tab in your dome light, and then you can just download this if you don't have it downloaded. This one. And then just click and drag over here. We'll do a file save, and we can, I suppose, I'm going to jump into my Redshift layout here. Oops. And once he pops back in, we can render this to see what it's looking like. Okay, so it's very overexposed. So let's bring that down. And we can bring down the intensity as well. And we can just kind of play around with the rotation here. We want the shadows to be at his back because, you know, we have the light coming in from the front of him. So the dark of him should be quite, or the back of him should be quite dark. Let's hide this track solid. And now let's grab his material. So I'm going to keep saving now because whenever I'm in the Redshift render view and screen recording at the same time, I get a lot of crashes. Let's open up the material or the content browser again. Go to materials. I'm searching for wood, oak. And the one I want is this one. So download that or just double click on it if you have it downloaded. have it here now in our materials, so we can apply that to our creepy guy. So that's just loading. So that's already applied. We just can't see it. Let's turn up the dome light a bit more, just so we can see what we're working with. And I want to get his kind of zombie, you know, his kind of clicker looking head, I suppose you could call it. If any of you are familiar with The Last of Us, I want to give him that kind of clicker looking head that you guys saw at the start of this tutorial. So to do that, let's just stop rendering this. I have a PNG, which you guys are going to be able to download. I just kind of drew out some lines in the shape of what could be just cuts on his head. And I kind of applied a Gaussian blur to smoothen out the edges, so we get a nice smooth transition between just displacement and no displacement, as opposed to just a sudden change in that height in the geometry. So let's create that material now. We can double click in our materials panel to create a new material. We can call this scars, and let's open that up. We need to grab the PNG, so you guys can download this from the description below, and say no on that. So we want to get a color splitter first of all, so that we can extract the alpha channel, because this is a PNG on a transparent background. See, I've frozen now already. Bear with me. So that is why we save, and save again. I'm going to save again. So as I was saying, we have this PNG and it's on a transparent background. So we want to extract that opacity. So we need a color splitter. So let's grab one. Just going to type in splitter. And we can add that in. And we want to put in the out color into the input, and the output alpha we put into opacity. And we can now apply this. We're going to be applying this to the head of our guy, because we're just working on the head. We're giving him his weird scars displacement on his head. So let's find his head geometry. It's under figure, and here it is. So now we can apply that to the head. And we can, I suppose, let's just hop into our default camera so we can kind of go up close to his head from behind, because that's where the camera is going to be. And let's also turn off the background of our dome light as well. We don't want to see that. Just go to details and you can turn off the contribution of the camera down to 0. So, okay, so let's just save again and hit play. Okay, so you can see there we have just the scars are visible and his head is basically invisible. So we need to apply this wood oak to his head also, and make sure that the scars are on top of those. And we want to give them a bit of color as well. Keep saving. We want to give them a bit of color as well. So I'm going to grab a ramp. Let's zoom out here a bit. Let's grab a ramp. And we can stick that into the color channel here of our standard material, or our standard node. And let's grab some color for this. So we'll go for some red. Not pink. And some more red, maybe a bit darker. So now we have our color. So we want to get our displacement. So let's save again. So we want to, make this, make the bloody part just kind of stay in position, and then the head kind of stick out a bit. So we'll grab a displacement node, this displacement node, and we grab the alpha output from our color splitter, put it into the text map input and the output over to the displacement. And we can reroute this as well just by right clicking on the line, just to keep it all nice and tidy. Keep saving. Now you are not going to be seeing any displacement yet, because we need to go down to our head and we need to right click, go to render tags and grab a Redshift object tag. Go to the geometry tab and override, turn on tessellation. So you can see it's nice and smooth geometry now since we have tessellation turned on. That's off, that's on, huge difference. And we need to enable displacement. And let's just bring this up to something like 3. And we have it, but it's, you know, it's the wrong way. So what we want to do is we want to invert that result. We want to invert it. So let's grab an invert node. Here it is. And we'll just stick that in front of our color splitter. And we'll reroute this like this. So now you can see that the displacement is kind of happening outwards as opposed to, so the red part is not moving and the rest of his head is displacing outwards, which is what we want. Let's go back to our RS camera now. You can see that we have his kind of weird head going on. And now we just kind of have to kind of turn this so that, you know, so we can actually see it a bit better. Something like that could be cool. So we'll do a file, save, and let's just kind of play this so we can see what it's looking like when he's like turning his head. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool. So one thing I just noticed is that our geometry here isn't, you know, it's not smooth, it's jagged. Our Redshift, what's it called? Redshift object tag needs to be affecting the whole body so that we get some nice smooth geometry. For that tessellation to kick in for the entire model, basically. So let's drag this up to our creepy guy null. And now you can see we have that nice smooth geometry for the whole character. So let's look at our lighting now. So the dome light, I mean, I think we have it in a good position at -59. Keep in mind that could be different for you guys now, but again, we're just trying to get those shadows behind him, something like that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at -59. And we also want to replicate this kind of window that has a lot of light flooding in. So let's grab a plane. We'll call this window. And we want to make it a child of our track solid so that we can hit Alt-0 on our keyboard, which will then reset transform, which basically means it's going to align itself to the track solid. So we can just stop this for a second, jump into standard, and we can have a look at this. So our track solid is here and our window has aligned itself to it. So let's hide our creepy guy for a second and let's just start making this window the same as the actual window. So something like this looks good, and we need to get material. Let's do a file save. We're going to get a, I think we're getting, yeah, incandescent material, and we can apply that to our window. And we can have a look at the settings here. So we can crank this up a bit. Let's just see what that looks like if we turn back on our creepy guy. And let's do a file save. Let's go to the Redshift render view and see what this looks like. So if I turn off my dome light so we get a better idea. Actually, no, I'm going to leave that back on. It looks so bad. I can't look at it for very long without the dome light. Let's go back to our material settings, crank this up. So you can see what we're getting now as we're cranking this up. So obviously that's, you know, high, too high, I meant to say. So something like this, I suppose. If we turn it off, turn it on. Now we don't want to see it in our render view. We just want the light from it. So let's right click, go to render tags, grab a Redshift object. Let's go to visibility, override, and turn off primary ray visible. So now we're just seeing the light being cast on our creepy guy. If we turn this off, we're not going to see the light either. So that's what we want. We just want to see the light. And that's fine. I wonder if we... So let's just turn off override on this. I wonder if it'll make much of a difference for us to get this even closer to what our actual window looks like. So it'd be like half a window here. And then another, if we hold down control, click and drag, another half a window over here, which is closer to what the actual window looks like. And then if we go to these and click on override again, so we can't see them. I don't know if that made a difference. I've no before and after, but I suppose it's good practice to get everything as close to the real world as possible when it comes to compositing. So we'll keep it as that. I'm going to crank this down all the way and just slowly work my way up. Okay, so I think I kind of like that. Maybe the dome light now is too bright. Let's bring down the exposure on the dome light. Just kind of slowly working my way up again till I find something that I think looks good. Let's try and reduce the intensity. So something like that I think looks pretty good. I might even bring these down even more. So let's turn these windows off and turn them on. I still feel like we're getting too much. Is that our, yeah, that's our windows. Our windows are still giving us too much brightness, I feel like. So I might just bring this down even more. Yeah, that might be a little bit more acceptable, I think. So if we go to back to here, let's turn these windows off, turn them back on. Yeah, I think I'm liking that a bit more altogether. So let's do a file save. So let's have a playback on this. Looks pretty good. I like the way he's twitching. I'm happy with the range of animation that I eventually selected. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. We could just jump in here for a second into this material and just have a little play with this. Let's see, do we have coat on? We don't. Let's try and add a bit of coat. A little bit of roughness. Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of coat could make a little bit of an improvement on the red part of the material. So let's go with that. Cool. Okay, guys. So this is ready to render out. So we can get this ready to render out, I suppose. Let's do a file save. Go to render settings, and we want to go to output. We're going to be rendering out all frames. So that's from 0 to this frame. And we are rendering this out at 25 frames per second. That's grayed out there because we're using the project frame rate. If you go to click in your project, if you're clicking Cinema 4D in any panel and hit Control D, or is it Shift? Yeah, Control D, you can see your frames per second is set there. And we're going to save this out. We are not using a multipath. We're not doing any AOVs. And we're doing this as a PNG. Alpha channel turned on. So let's save this out to our sequences folder. And we can call this shot 2. Shot 2. And we're not turning on motion blur because, remember, our After Effects camera is all messed up. We are going to be in our next shot, which, looking at the length of this tutorial, guys, is probably going to be in a part 2. I'm probably going to have to cut this up into parts. So in part 2, we're going to be tracking this using Cinema 4D's. We're going to be tracking the next shot using Cinema 4D's native camera tracker. But this tutorial is stretching out a bit much, so I am going to have to cut this into parts. So Redshift motion blur, we're turning that off. Where are you, motion blur? So that's already turned off. That's fine. And that's pretty much it. That's good to go. Let us see. So we're rendering at the moment, and we want to make sure that our dome light, let me just go to original size here, at 100%. So we want to make sure that our dome light isn't visible. The background is not visible. So that's fine. It's not. What we're seeing here is the, sorry guys, I'm slowing up a bit. What we're seeing here is the Redshift camera in the background. So we need to go to our Redshift camera and go to background and turn that off. And now if we check our alpha channel, just by clicking on here, you can see that all we're going to be getting is this. Everything else is transparent. And that's ready to render. So let's do another file save. Stop your Redshift render view from rendering. So before we actually click render, we have to jump into render settings. I just spotted something. If we go to output, we're actually rendering out 2000 frames, which is wrong. We are just wanting to render out the preview range, which is from frame 0 to frame 203. So just do that before we click on render to picture viewer. Let's do a file save and let's click on render to picture viewer. So just overwrite what I've already rendered there, because it took me about 13 frames before I actually noticed. I was like, holy moly, that's a lot of frames, and then I realized. So this is going to render out at around 6 seconds to 7 seconds per frame. So it shouldn't take that long. Once that's fully rendered, we'll jump into After Effects and we can pop in our rendered sequence into the composition, and that will automatically update the clip that we started off with in Premiere Pro. So we'll jump back in once this is done. Okay guys, so that's finished rendering, so we can jump now into After Effects, and let's double click in this panel here and we can go to our folder, saved it in sequences, shot 2, and here it is. Just double click on any one of those. Just make sure the PNG sequence is selected when you're doing that. And we do have to select the sequence, hit Control-Alt-G, open up the interpret footage, and then we can type in 25 because for some reason After Effects doesn't read image sequences frames per second. I don't know why. So click OK on that and let's bring it in. We can hide our track solid as well, and we can watch this playback now. So that's looking pretty good. But you know, the thing we're missing here is motion blur. And you'll remember at the start we talked about how After Effects tracking the camera is easier, but it messes up our tracked camera's frames inside once you bring it into Cinema 4D. So we've no motion blur. So how do we fix that? Now, what I usually use is a paid plugin called Real Smart Motion Blur, but you guys all probably don't have that. So if you go to your effects and presets in After Effects, as long as you're using the latest version of After Effects, you just type in motion blur. Now, it used to be this CC Force motion blur, which is not very good, but now they have this new pixel motion blur, which you can read about here. So pixel motion blur basically analyzes the video footage and does a bunch of cool stuff and makes it look even nicer than what we had before. So let's select our sequence, double click on pixel motion blur. Now if we find a part where he's like doing a sudden jolt, like there, now we have, look at his arms, now we have some lovely free motion blur without having to render that out of Cinema 4D. So that is very handy. So I want to open up go to effects, type in Lumetri, and let's select the layer, double click on Lumetri so it will automatically apply. Let's go to basic correction. I'm just going to increase the temperature a bit. I just want to, or not the temperature, sorry, the exposure a little tiny bit on that, just to kind of make this guy pop a bit more. Felt like it was a bit dark, so I think that's looking pretty good. So what we can do now is we can Control S to save this, and we can open up Premiere Pro. And let's open up our project that we're working on. Let's make this so you can see what is going on. So now you can see that our shot 2 that we've been working on has changed from blue to red. And it is now available to view inside of Premiere. So I am going to mute this audio because it's probably going to give me a copyright strike. Not that I downloaded it illegitimately, but for some reason I'm not allowed to use the source that I downloaded it from. I'm not allowed to use it on YouTube for some reason. I don't know why. Well, I am, but I just can't monetize the stuff. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So we have our guy in there. Shot 2 is done. So we have shot 1 cuts into shot 2. It's all inside of After Effects. We could even just make this even creepier if we select it, go to Lumetri color. We could go to basic correction, bring down the temperature of that a bit, make that a bit cooler, a bit colder, maybe even reduce saturation a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to leave that up to you. I mean, you could say that looks a bit creepier. But yeah, that's it, guys. That is it for part 1. So this was a very lengthy tutorial. Didn't expect for it to go on this long. But part 1, yeah, it went on for ages. Part 2 is going to be this shot. And we'll try and squeeze in this shot as well. But we are going to be doing the next part of this tutorial. We're only going to be tracking inside using Cinema 4D's native camera tracker. This was just to show you about After Effects and the trouble I was having with the camera when bringing it into Cinema 4D. If you guys do not have that problem, please do let me know in the comments below. Or if you guys know of any solution other than the solution I already talked about, which is basically manually fixing the keyframes inside of, manually fixing this mess inside of Cinema 4D. Other than that, if you guys have a cool solution for that, please do let me know. So I'm going to let this After Effects composition roll out while I do my end of tutorial spiel. I do hope you guys learned a lot. As always, smash that like button if you did, or let me know in the comments. If you're not subscribed, you might consider doing so to help out with this channel. A lot of effort does go into this tutorial, so I do appreciate you guys that do reach out and help me with likes and with comments. I'm going to be putting a link probably over there. Could be over there. I think it's over there. To my Cinema 4D native camera tracking tutorial. You guys might want to give it a watch to prep for the next part of this tutorial, where we are going to be using Cinema 4D's camera tracker natively. We're not going to be in After Effects tracking the camera, just because, you know, of the problems I've told you with regards to the After Effects camera and how it kind of messes us up when we bring it in Cinema 4D. So you guys might give that Cinema 4D native camera tracking tutorial a watch, or you might not. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.